Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, and yes, it's a bit of a different background today because I am not feeling very well at all. So I have been in bed for the last 3 or 4 days with this horrible sickness thing. I've had my bloods taken today, so we'll see what comes back. I'm starting on some antibiotics, so hopefully I'll be starting to feel better. But I haven't made content in a good old while, since before Middle-earthathon basically, which is wild because that week did not go the way I planned it to. The vlog that I filmed for it is probably not going to surface because I did not film enough and it just wasn't very good. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to forego the vlog, which is sad, just really sad, but there we are. So instead, I thought I'd compile a list of top 10 book recommendations to read when you're not feeling very well. Now, I started off with the concept of cozy and then realised very quickly I don't read that many cozy books, or at least ones that aren't cozy to anyone else but me. So I've cobbled together 10 books that I really enjoy. The first one I'm going to recommend to you to read when you're not very well is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. These are not in any order, by the way, but these are all books I really enjoyed and I think will make anyone feel better if they read them. This I read back in 2021 and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This follows a guy called Ryland, I believe his name is. Yes, Ryland Grace. He finds himself waking up on a spaceship with no one around and he has to figure out what's going on, where he is, what the point of him being there is, and it is just such a good book. It is sciencey, there is science talk, but it is extremely accessible. I never once felt that Andy Weir was talking down to the reader at all, and Ryland as a character is extremely pragmatic and definitely has a better response to waking up alone in a spaceship, because not sure about you guys, but I'd freak out in that situation completely. I'd completely freak. But no, he goes around and figures stuff out. And there's one of my favourite alien life form characters in this book. I'm not going to spoil it because it's absolutely fantastic, but this is wonderful. It is quite thick, so if you're not feeling good, maybe audiobook it. I don't know. There are ways around it, but this was fantastic. And it is an adult. It's an adult sci-fi. But I do think it's accessible enough for younger readers to get into it. Andy Weir, of course, is the author of The Martian, which I enjoyed just as much. But this one definitely takes it to the post over The Martian because I just enjoyed it more. Recommendation number 2 is The Familiars by Stacey Halls. I read this back in 2022 and I also gave it 5 stars. This is historical, magical realism, fantasy-esque, and it is adult again, and I gave it 5 stars. And this follows a lady called Fleetwood, and this follows her it's to do with witchcraft and the fact that there is this fox that keeps on cropping up, and of course it's kind of thought that maybe this fox is a familiar to a witch, and it is a lot to do with the Lancashire witch trials. When I read this back in 2022, I lived really, really close to where Pendle Hill was, where the Lancashire witch trials took place, and that also was very, very cool. There is a map in here, and I lived pretty close. So I lived close to Halifax at some point. I don't live there anymore, but a little bit further this way is where I was living at the time, and that definitely helped. But I really enjoyed how pragmatic Fleetwood was as a character. She was really, really interesting, and I loved the imagery of the fox, and there was a lot to do with childbirth and such as the like. So I really, really enjoyed this. It is cozy, it is very easy reading. There are some content warnings, so do look those up if you do require them. The third book I'm going to recommend, which is definitely in the cozy sphere, is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is, of course, a adult fantasy. It is 5 out of 5 stars. There is sapphic elements to this. It is about an orc and I think she's a tiefling, but I can't remember if it actually says, but it follows these two characters, and they open a coffee shop in an unknown place, and they bake cakes and they make coffee, and it is just charming. There is things that happen during the way, but this is just lovely. I didn't think I'd like this. I didn't think I was into cozy fantasy, and then I gave this a chance, and I was wrong. I think everyone should read this. This is absolutely wonderful, and the characters are just amazing. The guy, the little creature guy who makes the croissants is just precious, and I love him with all my heart. So yeah, give this one a go if you're thinking about it. If you're worried because of all the hype is right on this one. Like, a lot of the time I'm the same. Hype puts me off a book like straight away, but this one defies all odds. Next up, it wouldn't be this channel, would it, if I didn't do this, but next up is The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien. This was the last time, well, I'm currently rereading this at the moment. I have linked Middle-earth down below. This is what we're currently reading in September, and we will be reading The Fellowship of the Ring in October, Two Towers in November, Return of the King in December, and we might even do the Silmarillion in January. Maybe. We also then might go into Tolkien's back catalogue, depending on what people want to do, because there is loads. But back to this video. The Hobbit is such a cozy children's middle grade fantasy. I gave it 5 stars. Originally I gave it 4 stars, but the writing style is extremely accessible. It is silly, it is fun. The characters, you meet Bilbo and the dwarves, and Bilbo Baggins is such a great little guy. I really like him. I love all the dwarves. I love the dynamic. I really enjoy the kind of references to Lord of the Rings. Of course, this was written way before Lord of the Rings was even thought about, and actually was edited to make it a prequel to the Lord of the Rings, when it was originally just a standalone little silly story that Tolkien created for his kids' bedtime. And I just think it's charming. The humour in this is great, the songs in this are fun, and the characters are just wonderful. So yeah, I wouldn't be me if I didn't throw a Lord of the Rings book in there. But yes, this is one I choose for when you're not feeling very well, because it's not long. This edition is under 300 pages, and it is easy. I am currently tabbing though, and I may be tabbing too much, but c'est la vie. Next up is a book I don't actually have physically, and that is Howl's Moving Castle by Deanna Wynne Jones. I actually listened to this on Audible on audiobook, and I loved it. So I really enjoyed the Studio Ghibli film, and it put me off from reading the book for a long time. But the book is actually wonderful. It has a lot of the same elements. It is extremely different from the film. Like, those are 2 different entities, but they are still recognisably the same thing. But Deanna Wynne Jones, like, made Howl Welsh, which I was thrown by. I never thought that was going to be the case. And there's also flashbacks into, like, our real world, and, like, it all connects, and it is so good. So funny, so charming. It is a middle grade fantasy. I gave it 5 stars. I read that this year, and I just thought it was amazing. So if you like the Studio Ghibli film, read the book. I'm currently in the middle of the second book, Castle in the Sky, which I'm not enjoying as much, but it is just as charming, and I really enjoy Deanna Wynne Jones' writing style, and I'll definitely be reading more from her because it's just great. It is just great. So much fun. The next book is number 6, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is an adult science fiction, 5 out of 5 stars again. I read this back in 2021. Yes, I did. And this is written like a contemporary in space. It doesn't feel super sci-fi. Yes, there's aliens. Yes, it's set on a spaceship. But it feels like a contemporary. There is sapphic LGBTQ+ relationships throughout this. Non-conventional relationships are throughout this. And I absolutely adored it. It is so cozy, so nice. And the only thing about this is that the rest of the series do not follow the same couple that it sets out in this one, which kills my soul because they are definitely my favourites. I've only read the second one, so the first and second one, so this one and A Close and Common Orbit. I haven't read book 3 or 4 yet, so maybe when I read those I might change my mind, but currently this one is the absolute standout of the series. And again, Becky Chambers is so good at not ever talking down to the reader. It is extremely accessible sci-fi, so if I would call it a gateway into getting into sci-fi, Becky Chambers and Andy Weir might be the way to go. But I did give this 5 out of 5 stars. It is beautiful. And there's also like a little mystery going around, like why is Rosemary even there and where she's even come from. And yeah, I really, really liked it. That's kind of all I need to say. It is cozy. It will make you feel better. And there's a really found family kind of loving environment. And it is just nice to lose yourself in. The next book I'm going to recommend to you is A Kind of Spark by Elle McNichol. This I read back in 2023 and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This is a contemporary middle grade and follows Addie, who is a girl with autism in Scotland, and she just wants the witches of her village to be remembered. The witch trials in her little village, she wants them to be remembered as women, and the fact that, you know, anyone different shouldn't just be prosecuted because they're different. It just meant that really no one understood them, and obviously Addie feels kind of a companionship to that. And what this book did was show me how not catered to anyone other than completely neurotypical people the world is catered to. So if you are neurodivergent, it is so much more difficult. Obviously this shows it from the autism standpoint, because Elle McNichol themselves is neurodivergent and autistic, and I love that, absolutely. The BBC, so CBBC, which is the children's BBC channel here in the UK, did an absolutely incredible job of adapting the series for screen, and both of these mediums made me cry. The screen was slightly different to The Kind of Spark. I can't wait to get my hands on the sequel, Keedy, which I know has been out for a while now, so I will get to it because I really, really want to read it. Keedy is one of my favourite characters in this entire book, but this was absolutely incredible. One of my favourite reads from 2023. So definitely pick this one up. It is a bit of a tearjerker, but an incredibly important read. And it is, again, it's very accessible. It is a middle grade book and it is under 200 pages. So all of this is like extras. So I would definitely pick this up if you haven't already. And also give the TV show a try. Next up, something a little bit different, is Law Olympus by Rachel Smythe. This is volume 1. I thought, you know, the whole thing is pretty good, but this is, I read this back in 2022 and I gave it 5 stars. This is YA mythology. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and I just love the art style. I love the pinks, the blues, just how Persephone is always pink and Hades is this dark blue kind of brooding character. This graphic novels series is amazing. It definitely deserves all of the love it gets. It's one of those, though, it is heavy. It is a heavy hardback. I know that it's on Webtoons. This is just where it kind of came from, so maybe give it a go that way. But I know that I love these editions, though. These hardback editions are stunning. So yeah, I absolutely love this. It's a fun read. Who doesn't love a Persephone and Hades retelling? Like, come on. Getting to the last two. So, recommendation number 9 is The Hat Makers by Tamsin Merchant. I read this in 2021 and I gave it 4 stars. This is middle grade fantasy again. This follows Cordelia Hatmaker and her adventures to find her father. Now, this is set in like an alternate historical London where there are families who all basically are makers. So she is part of the Hatmaker family who makes these enchanted hats, and these hats can make you do things. So make you confident, make you more charming, make you happier, make you giddy, make you forget, all those sorts of things. And there are so many shenanigans that go on, and she meets her best friend Goose, which is great. I love that name. And also Sam. And those three are kind of like the Hatmakers. The sequel, the Troublemakers and the Tide Makers, I think is the third one, are all stunning. But like, my favourite thing about this is just how pretty that cover is. Like, it is so pretty. And yeah, again, super easy to read, not particularly difficult to read. So if you're not feeling well, it's a really good one. If you just want something that's a bit fun, you don't really have to use your mind too much to get into it. And yeah, highly, highly recommend Tamsin Merchant anyway, because I really enjoy their writing style. It's a lot of fun, very whimsical. Definitely a middle grade though, so keep that in mind. And then the last one that I've got is another graphic novel, and that is The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Ostertag. This is a really charming graphic novel that I read back in 2022. It is a middle grade fantasy. I gave it 4 stars, just because it's not super, I don't know, it's not, I just didn't enjoy it as much, but I do love it. It's very charming. It's again sapphic, and it follows a girl who meets a Kelpie, and there is a lot of environmental messaging throughout, which is always great to see. The art style is really quite cool. It's quite cartoony, and yeah, again, very bittersweet, young love in the summer. Just a really nice book to kind of just lose yourself in when you're not feeling great. So yeah, pick this up if you are looking for something that's really easy read, really nice and really charming, because you might actually find that you enjoy it. But yeah, those are my recommendations. I'm not going to pick them up again, but if you got to this stage in the video, let me know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts were on them, or if you've got any recommendations for me that I can pick up while I am still unwell. But yeah, that is it, guys. Subscribe, like if you haven't already, and yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.